Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the 1/100 scale non-grade Seravee Gundam from the Gundam 00 1/100 scale non-grade line. It's a pretty cool line of kits, and with the Dynamace coming out in the Master Grade line in the near future, I thought it'd be cool to take a look at this kit. I've actually had this kit snapped up for a little while. I've been meaning to review it. I'm just finally getting around to reviewing it here for you guys. One thing you'll notice too throughout the review is that the kit looks maybe a bit weird in the colors of it. That's because it is pretty thoroughly sanded at this point in preparation for painting it. I do plan on painting this kit in the very near future, so you guys will see that probably pretty soon, probably the beginning of next year. But yeah, the Seravee is the big, giant, hefty Gundam, the Season 2 successor to the Virtue Gundam, which is also pretty cool. Between the two, I think I do kind of prefer the Seravee though. And in terms of the kits as well, this kit definitely does have a lot to offer. It is a 1/100 scale non-grade kit, so it's not going to be the most heavily articulated or detailed kit. There are a lot of seam lines on it and a lot of wide open spaces and not a lot of detail on a lot of parts. But I do think there is still a lot of value in this kit, so check it out. We'll go through everything that it's included and everything that it does, starting right now. Right, and I should not forget to mention that this is also the designer colors version of this kit. There is a regular version, and basically the only difference is that the colors that the kit is molded in are slightly different. Also, you get these different markings for this, so obviously you can see I haven't used any of these, but these are like the designer's special markings for this kit that you'll get with this version of it. Otherwise, the rest of the kit in terms of what you actually get in plastic, there's no difference there. But some really cool markings in there if you do want to end up using these stickers, but I'm going to end up getting some water slides for mine. We do also have just some foil stickers, which you can see I really haven't used many of them, mainly just the ones for the eyes and then the red ones that go underneath the clear parts on the head. You'll see those in more closer detail in a few minutes. And then there's a few more on there for like the eyes for the big Gundam face, but then you'd be covering those up. I think you wouldn't be able to get the clear effect out of those with the LEDs. And a couple more in there that are for like masking the light in the neck. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's right, you heard me right a minute ago. This kit comes with two LED units, one for in the neck here, one goes in the torso and feeds up to the head and feeds the light here for the eyes of the Seravee Gundam. The other one goes in the back of the Seraphim here on the back and will feed through light out the front of like the chest of that, which would be like the kind of big Gundam face on the chest of the Seraphim Gundam. So two LED units in here. And I should also take this moment to remind you guys that the list price for this kit is 4,200 yen, so around $45. Keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this. We've got action-based adapters here, one for the Seravee Gundam and one for the Seraphim. That's if you wanted to display them separately. Now for hand options, you just have these holding hands, which I've got there on the kit at the moment, but then you have some more. For the Seraphim Gundam, when it's transformed, it will use these hands. You can also just use these as it is in this state too. You can have those plugged up into there and holding the beam sabers, which we'll talk about in a moment. Then we also have another set of holding hands for coming out of these parts here in the knees. When you fold these bits out, you can plug these holding hands into there. So those would also be for holding the beam saber handles. And so while this Gundam is officially meant to include 6 beam sabers, one for each of the 3 sets of hands, we only get 2 in the kit, unfortunately. So that is one thing that I wish we would have got more in case you wanted to have it fully loaded, decked out with all 6 beam sabers. That definitely would be a pretty cool look. But we get 2 handles and the clear pink effect parts for that. And we also have the head for the Seraphim Gundam, which obviously is not really an accessory. I'm just showing it to you because when you have the Seraphim transformed and like loaded up on the back of the Seravee Gundam, you can't include the head in that, so you'll just have this left over as an extra part. This is something you need to keep a hold of. And then of course you have his main weapons, the GN bazookas. Now there's 2 of these. They're one for the left and one for the right. This kind of secondary handle off to the side will be opposite for the left and right version of this. Now as it is, this is pretty cool. The handle just folds down here and it can just be handheld. Again, one's in the left hand, one in the right hand. You can also fold the handle up and fold out this little peg out the back right there and plug this into the cannons up over the shoulder like that, and make some GN super bazookas like that, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool. And just for a point of reference, you can't plug those into the knees. The plugs are a little bit different. Up here it uses ball joints, up here it uses a peg. You could certainly modify that easy enough if you want to have these plugged into the knees instead, but just keep that in mind. But of course the other gimmick is that you can also combine these together. Just snap them together like that. You'll fold down one handle and fold out the top handle, fold that back in, fold one back part down a little bit, open these up, these slide open like that, And then you can hand hold this for the double bazooka. I forget what this is actually called, but the super ultra bazooka. Alright, so at first I didn't actually think it could do it, and it's not very clear in the manual, but you can hold on to the handles while you've got the bazookas plugged into its over-the-shoulder cannons there, which is pretty cool. It definitely makes for a pretty cool look. I actually didn't really consider this too much in terms of being like a cool pose for the kit. I just kind of wrote it off, but it actually is pretty cool, I have to admit, so that's pretty awesome. Also, I'm very happy to say that while this kit is very bulky and pretty heavy, it doesn't seem to be too heavy on an action base. Now I have to say, if we do eventually someday get a master grade of this kit, it's going to be much heavier, and that one I would definitely worry about the weight of just putting that up on an action base. Just you want it to be well balanced so that it doesn't fall over. This one I feel like, because it's so hollow for the most part, that definitely cuts out a lot of the weight, and it's not too bad. Most notably there for how big and bulky and massive the legs are. You can have the legs spread out as I've got them here, and they don't seem to be wanting to droop down at all, where I feel like with a master grade that would most definitely probably be an issue for that. So hopefully if the day comes, they'll design that in a way so that the hips are able to support the legs out to the side like that without them falling down due to the weight. Alright, so before I get into talking about the articulation, I just want to separate them. We'll just pull off the Seravee Gundam here from the back. And for the moment, we'll put him to the side and talk about him more later. As for the Seravee itself, like I said, we have a clear part there for the top of the head and a red foil sticker which will go underneath that, which doesn't look too bad, but I'll probably just end up painting that and maybe not even keeping that clear part. I'll just paint that part to solid red or something. I'm not quite decided completely on the color scheme, but the head will go up to there and down to there, which is not bad for just a simple ball joint. And again, the LED unit will go up inside of here, so the ball joint there is clear so that the light can pipe up from the LED up into the head and out the eyes. So obviously if you're going to be doing that, then you're not going to want to use the sticker for the eyes, or you'll have to maybe just cut out the green part of the sticker, or best bet would just be to just paint black on the clear part around the eyes. As for accessing the LED, it's very simple. You'll just want to pull this away to pull that out, and that's where the LED goes in there. It'll be simple enough to just pull that out and switch that on and off. For the articulation here in the torso, it actually rotates here at the separation between the top and the middle part of the body rather than like at the actual waist. So that's kind of interesting that it rotates there. And we have a little bit of forward and back movement, but it's kind of negligible there. It's not really a whole lot. For the shoulders, those will also move forward and back a little bit. Again, you're seeing one of the many seam lines on the kit there. The shoulder itself will move up, and then this part here on the side will also move up independently, allowing you to bring the arm up to about there, which is really not bad at all for a 100 scale non-grade kit. That's definitely pretty good. Then we've got rotation there at the top of the arm, of course, clear part here on the side covering the GN condenser. A nice bend there at the elbow, giving you, again, more than 90 degrees. It's not like a full bend, but considering the bulk and the scale of this, that's definitely not bad at all. The hand is just straight pegged into there, so you won't have that on a ball joint to rotate that around. But considering that this holds some pretty hefty, heavy weapons, I think that that's definitely a better option, because then you don't have to worry about the wrist sagging due to the weight of the guns that it's holding. Also, I guess I should mention that the beam saber handles are meant to be stored here in the forearms. I'm going to slide that in like that. So I guess if you really wanted to, you could sort of just use that as a beam tonfa. While he's not even holding the beam saber handle, you can just have that just sticking out of the forearm like that, which is actually pretty cool. And probably the best way to get out the handle, because once the handle's in there, it's kind of obviously hard to get out. So just use the beam effect part to plug that in and then pull that out. Down here at the waist, this front part will move up and down like that. Probably not really going to be serving much purpose, but at least it does move a little bit. Around on the back skirt, obviously nothing there. These big giant parts here on the side skirt will move up and down like that a little bit, and also rotate forward and back so you can get those out of the way. Considering the hip joints, you're really only going to get a spread to about there, so you can see these side skirts are not going to be getting in the way of that at all, massive as they are. And let me just pull this off, because they're not completely hollow. You do have some nice detail up underneath there, though from the outside they just kind of look like it's just one like shell piece, and there's like nothing really underneath there. It's kind of really hard to notice any of that detail unless you have it posed in a certain way where it's kind of like a little bit offset from the leg. You can actually see some of that detail inside of there, which is pretty nice. And as you saw, the legs can go pretty wide to about there, and also, as I mentioned before, they don't seem to want to droop down, so I've got them at their maximum spread, and then just kind of letting it dangle there, and they're not drooping down due to the weight. You might think, oh, okay, that's fine now that the kit is like really freshly snapped up, but how about over time? It's probably gonna sag. But like I mentioned before, I actually snapped this up like 2 months ago or more, so it's been a while, and it's still holding pretty fine, so pretty cool. Then the leg will be able to move all the way up to there, so I guess that little bit of articulation in the front skirt does actually come in handy, because it allows the front skirt to move out of the way just a little bit to bring the leg up pretty high, just due to this massive cannon there on the front of the knee. That kind of gets in the way, but as long as you don't want the leg to be kicked straight out, which it will just be kind of next to impossible with these cannons on there. But you can get the knee up really high for a nice bend there, and a double joint there in the knee to get a really nice bend for that. That is pretty dang good. As for the cannon here, that can just move up and down, and then that can also rotate side to side as well. At the ankles, you're able to move those side to side pretty well, although you're not really going to be able to get a super wide stance out of this. It should be, I think, probably wide enough. And then forward and back movement will be forward to there, backwards to there. Again, not crazy amount, but definitely fine. It's not bad at all. On the back of the legs, you have a separate little yellow part there for that, and then up underneath the feet, some full detail there, which is also very nice. Right, then as for the Seravee Gundam, to transform, you just kind of fold down the legs like that, fold around the arms, and then raise up the shoulder joint in there. It's on like a little track, so just be careful with that. Swing out the arms and then attach in some hands. Pop those in. Close up the Gundam's face there on the chest. Fold this part around onto his back. Fold back the yellow fins there. Pop on his head. And there you have your Seravee Gundam. Now, again, forgive that it's very sanded, and you can see I've already started gluing some of the seam lines here on the forearms, but it's pretty goofy looking. It's pretty weird in terms of its overall proportions and the fact that it has a giant Gundam face for its chest, but it's interesting. It's cool. I dig it. Let's quick run through his articulation as well. The head will go up to there and down to there, basically the same as with the Seravee Gundam for the most part. The shoulders, just due to the transformation, can move very high up, all the way up to there, which again is also comparable to the Seravee Gundam. It was almost the same like that. Then on the bottom of the shoulder armor, you have these little flaps which will move forward and back, which is kind of convenient considering how big the elbow part is sticking out the back. So when you're kind of trying to move this around, and this hanging down will kind of get in the way, so it helps to be able to move that up out of the way for the elbow there. But the arm will of course just rotate there at the top, and then with the bend there, that'll give you about 90 degrees, so it's pretty basic, but again, just due to the construction of the shoulder and the simplicity of this just kit in general, that's fine. The wrist is on a ball joint. In this case, they are on ball joints, so that should help where this one, if you wanted to have it holding beam sabers, you can get a little bit more articulation in the wrist there for getting a cooler pose out of that. There's no articulation here in the stomach section, just some rotation there at the waist like that. This front skirt bit in this case does not move at all, it's just fixed there. On the back skirt, again, nothing except for this little tab which you fold down when it's in its separated mode like this. The side skirts will move side to side a little bit, but those are kind of a little bit limited by the available space there. And then out to the side also, again, only a little bit like that. Some nice yellow parts up inside there for some detail at the top of the legs. The legs will ultimately be able to spread out to about there, again, basically about the same as the Seravee itself because they're just ball and socket joints. The leg will be able to come up to about 90 degrees there. Unfortunately, not as much as it would have been nice if this little part there at the front of the skirt there would be able to move out of the way so you could bring the leg up a little bit higher. And then a double joint in the knee will give you a full bend there. As you saw, it's kind of meant to be completely folded up for the transformation, so you won't have any problems there with the knee articulation. Here down at the ankles, it's kind of funky because this kind of whole lower part here is all kind of the top of the foot, sort of, so the ankle joint is a little bit high up in like the kind of lower part of the lower leg. One part of the transformation I forgot. This part here on the knee, pull off that kneecap part, you need to raise that to the higher position like that. Anyway, as we were saying, the ankle will move side to side there a little bit, and then you can bring this whole thing forward to about there. This little foot bit again will move just because of the transformation, but you can move that back and then point that all the way down if you wanted to. And then up underneath the feet, there's a little bit of detail there as well. Okay, and here I think is where you can really see what I was talking about when I said that this kit has so much value for the cost of it, because look at this, how cool is that? I'm not even like the person who's like really super into 00 as a series, or like I wouldn't say this is like my favorite Gundam ever by any means, but this is just so cool that you have the like extra Gundam attached onto his back and you can have it like launching off like that. All you need is just an action base. 4,200 yen for the price of this kit, plus another 600 yen for an action base or something. For less than 50 bucks, you can make this pretty cool. Posing with this is really cool. I like this so much. So this is what I mean when I talk about the value of this kit, just because of the diversity of the different options and things that you can do with this. You can have the Seraphim Gundam attached onto his back. You can have it as this whole separate piece, this whole separate mobile suit, I should say. You can swap the weapons. You can have it holding the bazookas just as their separate bazookas. You can combine them into the double bazooka. You can have them mounted onto the shoulder cannons with the Seraphim Gundam attached onto his back, or you can have the knee cannons folded out, so you can have the hands in those holding the beam sabers. You can have the hands in the shoulder, over the shoulder cannons holding the beam sabers. So there's just a lot of stuff that you can do in terms of the posing options for this. There's so much. I'm only going to be able to show you just a few poses here in the review, but you can just see how much you can do with just this one single kit. But alright, that's pretty much going to do it for the review. Like I said, there's a lot of different posing options that I could go through, but you guys can use your imagination a little bit on those. For the most part, I am so super happy with this kit. There's a lot of seam lines on there. Some of you guys might not like the lack of detail on there, but ultimately I think that it's very accurate. I don't think if they would have gone in and add a lot more detail, then it may have just kind of seemed like adding detail for detail's sake, which is fine. Some people like that, some people like a lot more detail, but I think for a 1/100 scale representation of the Seravee Gundam, it looks very good and looks very accurate to, I think, how it really should be in canon anyway. As for any other negatives of the kit, I mean, really the articulation is not bad at all, considering that this is a super massive bulky design and a 1/100 scale non-grade kit. The articulation is actually quite good, I think. The biggest negative point is just going to be the seam lines that I keep mentioning, and there's a lot of them, and so in order to get rid of all those and get this prep for painting, you will probably have to modify a few bits to be able to paint those separately if you want to get rid of the seam lines on there. So there will be definitely some work ahead of you if you wanted to end up painting this kit. And I think if I really wanted to be greedy, I would say that it would be nice if this would have come with some different hand options, maybe just a closed fist or an open hand or something just for the left hand. Just for how it is, if you're going to be holding the dual bazooka, double bazooka in one hand, then the other hand is just kind of sitting there free just as a holding hand, and it just looks a little bit awkward. But again, it's a 1/100 scale non-grade kit, so it'd be kind of silly to expect anything other than just a set of plain holding hands. So overall, as I've said, guys, for 4,200 yen, this is a lot of kit to enjoy. So definitely highly recommend it if you've never really considered this, just because you don't think that it'll be very good because it's an older 1/100 scale non-grade kit. I would say definitely consider it. I mean, it's possible that we could get a master grade of this coming out in the next couple years. I would consider that probably not very likely. If anything, we might get the Virtue. If they end up going and doing the second season lead Gundams from the series as well, I would be kind of surprised, but who knows? You could wait and see, but I would say if you don't feel like waiting, then drop 45-50 bucks on this kit and you'll definitely enjoy it. So that's it for the review, guys. Let me know if you have any other questions or comments, of course, down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.